TYTSports, Michael Shore here with Dan Keston. Ben Mankewicz is not here today, but he will be back soon, I promise you. You're wondering what Derek Jeter is doing since he retired from baseball? Here's what he's doing. He's doing, I think, what is the most exciting thing to happen to sports journalism, maybe any journalism, for a long time. That's not even hyperbole. I really believe that. He's starting this thing called the Players Tribune, which is sports journalism written by the athletes, frank, uncensored, we think, and kind of, I would say, brazen journalism about sports, but from the players. Now, I don't think that replaces sports journalism at all, but I think it's really interesting to hear that side of the story. Very interesting because Blake Griffin of the Los Angeles Clippers wrote an amazing essay about playing for Donald Sterling, what life is like playing for Donald Sterling, and how he couldn't really stand the Donald. But it happened really having to do with his experience with race and discomfort with Donald Sterling.
Well, everyone's speculating during that whole thing. Everyone was going, well, what are the players thinking? Like, how can Blake Griffin play here? You know, doesn't he want to take a stand? And this essay kind of goes into what he's thinking throughout the process. And he makes some really interesting points about, you know, it's very easy for us to talk about what he should and shouldn't do, but when he, you know, if this is the most important game of potentially your life in the playoffs, you know, it's a little different. You want to focus on the game.
Yeah, and it does sort of highlight how important, obviously, the sport is, but above all else, that making a stand, they're basketball players. They want to win the basketball game. And I thought it was interesting, too, and complimentary. I'm not an NBA guy. You know, no bones about it. I have nothing against it. I just don't, that's not a sport that I follow very closely. That they really do care about their fans. I mean, he's saying we owe it to our families, the fans, and our teammates. You know, that's important to them.
And ironically, I'm a Clipper fan, and a lot of my friends were coming to me and saying, how can you support a guy like Donald Sterling?
Right.
And now, you know, it's the same point that Blake makes in there, like you knew he's not a good guy, but, you know, for whatever reason, we're born in certain areas and we ultimately become fans of certain teams.
Yeah.
So it's hard if you've been a fan of a certain team, especially like the Clippers, where you suffered for 12 years or 20 years or whatever, to all of a sudden say, no, against the Golden State Warriors in Game 3, I'm not going to be a fan anymore.
Right, and it's also naive to think that all you do care about is the owner. Like, I've been a 49er fan my whole life, you know. I don't care about the Yorks. I'm not rooting for the Yorks. I'm rooting for the team that's on the field. The same with the Rangers. Cablevision owns them. They were owned by Madison Square Garden Enterprises and Gulf and Western, the New York Rangers, my whole life. That's not, it does make it nice when, you know, Jerry Jones loses and Daniel Snyder loses and owners that you can't stand lose. And, you know, I know that the owners of the Vikings are big Democratic donors, so I kind of like the Vikings because of that. But the point is that this is about the sport to them. And then also that Donald Sterling has this huge party and he holds Blake Griffin's hand. Blake Griffin does such a good job of painting the picture of what that is like. Also, it's called a white party. Nobody's really talking about that. Everybody dresses in white. So I thought
probably not the best
considering the issue, except for Donald
choice.
Sterling, by the way, who ironically dresses in black. Everybody's wearing white at the party except for Donald Sterling.
Well, this is the quote that pretty much sums it up. So Blake says, at this point, a lot of you are probably wondering why I didn't pull my hand away or why I didn't just leave the party. For one, I was a 20-year-old kid from Oklahoma, but even if I had been 25, I don't know if I would have been any different. The guy was my boss, and ask yourself, how would you react if your boss was doing the same thing to you? Which is a really interesting parallel to this is a job, this is the job he does, and he gets paid millions of dollars, which he wants to continue getting paid.
Right. And I'm so young, and I am from Oklahoma. I mean, is he from Oklahoma, or is he played?
I think he's from there too.
It doesn't. There's a naivete that happens to everybody. Who, if you get a new job, if you go to work for a company in Minneapolis right now, if you were hired, you would look at the boss, and if the boss takes you to a party, you just go along with it. And it is not necessarily right, but it's real. Read the Players Tribune. This is go do it online. Read this article. It's called "The Boss." I don't think you'll be disappointed, and I think you'll probably want to keep reading it.